All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson annihilate this woke feminist idea on promiscuity. Let's jump in, guys.
It might be good, but you could say something like there's wrong under, there's something bad happening in like a counterfactual sense. Like maybe, their happiness level is maybe like an 8 with this person that is the only person that they've ever met, the only person they've ever interacted with. And then you could take, there's a possible world where they meet somebody who's far better. Maybe, they like the temperature the same, in the house all the time or something like that.
But
or they want the same amount of kids or something like that. So
you can make that argument for everything.
There could be. Okay.
Yeah, you could say, well, Andrew, you're in a very happy marriage and you're very happy with your marriage, but there could be a world which exists in somewhere where you could have met a woman who's even better than Rachel. And so, you could apply that universally to every marriage which exists currently, every relationship which exists currently across the board. I'm not sure how that would be helpful to this.
Right. But so remember what we were talking about was the sample size for the individual being very small. If you've had a larger sample size, then that kind of mitigates that factor there. So when you look at somebody who has maybe 2 partners that they've dated before and they're marrying their 3rd partner or something, they at least have a data set to look at, like, okay, well, here are the possibilities of things that I like and things I don't like. And I've kind of been able to weed through and have the opportunity of having a more fulfilling relationships with a 3rd person because I have been able to weed out, these are the type of people I maybe am not as compatible with. Whereas that person, the person who hasn't had any other experiences, and I'm not.
She just rambled. She's just proud of so much without saying anything.
I'm not saying that that's a bad thing.
No,
I'm not saying it's necessarily bad.
Well, it's actually strange, in fact, because they would still be at the mercy of the same thing. Perhaps, though, if they hadn't gone off and had the 2nd or 3rd relationship and had only stayed in the 1st relationship as a virgin and had nothing to compare it to, then in an alternative world, they would have been much happier by that standard. And that's like, it would be the same thing applied here.
Yeah, I'm fine with saying that those people in those relationships are happy, but there could be something where they are happier once they have a bigger data set. So it's obviously with more knowledge about the world, like you have the ability to pick and choose better, you're more informed on the things that will make you happier. Right?
Well, I would agree that you gain more experience in the things that are happening around you, perhaps, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those are positive experiences or that you wish that you had known them.
Yeah, they don't have to necessarily. I'm just saying that with the bigger data set, you have more of a likelihood of finding the thing that's going to make you more happy.
But wouldn't this imply that the data set which was done on virgins and their happiness is somehow smaller than the data set which is done on people who've had 2 or 3 partners? Unless you're just saying, well, it's just trivially true that the people who've had 2 or 3 partners have had sex with more than one person, so we can just view them in a different light. It's like...
No, maybe just to clarify, I'm not talking about the data set. Do you mean the data set of people surveyed? Are you saying that you think that I'm saying that?
No. I think what you're saying is that women who have had 2 or 3 partners necessarily have more experience than the virgin. And
they
so
have a bigger data set.
they don't know what they're missing.
The virgins, people who are virgins, don't know what they're missing. Yeah, I think they have less of a data set.
But why would okay. They have less of a data set when it comes to sleeping with more people, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but why would that be a bad thing?
Right, because they have the possibility of looking for people or things that they're more compatible with. So let's just say the virgin, this person who's dated one person only has access to the data set of this person that makes them 8 out of 10 happy or something like that. Whereas the person who's had access, and engaged in intercourse or maybe had just, personal romantic relationships with other people, they have access to data sets of people who make them a level 10 happy or a level 8 or a level 7 or something like that. They have more access. They have access to more data, right? That individual has more access to data about what causes them to be happy in a relationship.
Okay, but again, couldn't I just apply this to anything? Couldn't I be like, well, there's not enough of a data set for us to really determine that if people don't drink gasoline, that they wouldn't be happier if they didn't have the experience of drinking gasoline before.
We do have we unfortunately have data on that, and it turns out really, really bad.
Too. And it's a pretty large sample size of virgins.
Okay, so what's being confused is not that the amount of people who are
No,
virgins
it's not being confused.
there is. Because
She's trying to
you're saying
confuse it.
The
Yeah, she's trying to confuse it. She's trying to confuse it again. It's just the inability of just take the arguments out of their own emotion is so hard. What she's doing is she's being in an apologetic for females. She's saying that there's no difference basically between a virgin or a person that have body count. Because even though that's the case, that there's no, the reason that is the case that there's no difference because the virgin still have a FOMO, right? Have a FOMO kind of thing, right? Fear of missing out. And therefore, that's why it will make it even the same as somebody that has body count, I guess. That's the argument. But the inability, even though we have data, we have history data about these things, about a virgin is more likely to stay with you. If we have the theory of pair bonding, it's clear. The less body she has, the more likely she will have a pair bonding emotion. It's very easy, guys. Very easy. The more partner, or more partner, because she can sleep with women and men too nowadays. The more sexual partners that she had, the less the ability of pair bonding. Also, she's gonna feel disgust with herself because if she find a man that treats her well, she's gonna feel guilt. She's gonna feel guilt because she knows she doesn't deserve it.
Size of virgins that we have.
You're equivocating.
Hold on. Breathe.
Yeah.
You're saying
equivocating.
right now
I'll show you.
that the amount of virgins that we have is less. I'm not saying that. We could have 50 virgins and 50 people who have had sexual
I
experiences.
know you're not
with
saying
more than
that.
one
What
person.
you just got done saying was what we do understand the correlation between gasoline and people's happiness. It's like, okay, but we do understand the correlation between virginity and virgin's happiness in marriage. It's the same thing back and forth. What would be the experience differential there? Why shouldn't I go drink gasoline to know that drinking gasoline, it probably is going to make me happy?
Okay, so let's get this clear first. I will say this, the person who decides to go drink gasoline, let's just say you have two people, one who has never drank gasoline, the other person is going to. Both of them have the same knowledge about the facts about what that would do to them. But there's also, some like non-zero probability that they could
Love it.
live a happy life and love drinking gasoline, and
Sure.
that's their thing.
Which there are people, I guess, who do. But
there
anyway,
there
go
are
ahead.
freaks. But yeah, look. So these people, the person who did in fact drink the gasoline, and regardless of whether or not the outcome was good, if they hated it, if they loved it,
Oh man, she
person-
just stretching that gum, huh? The reason she's stretching this gum way too much is to make sure she has time to think about what she's gonna say next.
and does in fact, whether that's for the worse or better, have a bigger data set to go off of. Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Yeah, they.
But should they do it?
Should they? No, obviously
There
not.
we go.
because we
That's
know
it.
about
To this.
we know about the significant negative outcomes
Same.
of that.
I would just make the same argument back for this: that if they shouldn't drink gasoline because we know that there's significant bad outcomes for that, but your argument for they should have more than one sexual partner, even though we know the negative outcomes for that, and you say, but there's a possibility that they just don't know what they're missing. I could just make the same argument with gasoline.
Well, just to be clear, because going back to the prompt wasn't that people should have multiple partners. The prompt is more so about, and maybe you can read it back specifically, but it was about the fact that if you're looking for a partner, the main concern shouldn't be the amount of partners that person has.
I don't think it's a main concern.
The prompt was, you shouldn't care about body count if you want a relationship.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
Right, and by that I mean that shouldn't be your main concern. I mean, I'm allowed to clarify, right?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
I think
So,
that's totally fair. So,
Yeah.
so you're not actually saying that shouldn't
that in no
be a
case
factor.
you should ever care. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you should care in some cases, of course.
Yeah. Like, so if it is the case that I have good evidence to support that a woman staying a virgin, right, and she's religious, like, for instance, let me give you an example. If you're a religious man, right, and you would have certain virtues which are attributed to your religion.
Sure.
One of which could be to marry a woman who's virtuous, and a sign of chastity. A sign of virtue could be chastity. That's in Christianity, for instance, chastity is overwhelmingly large when it comes to the idea of virtue. So you would think men like that actually should be selecting for body count, right?
They should if the person isn't currently acting in that way. So the problem that you run into here is like obviously people who were prior atheists can be reformed. They can find Christianity. They can find God.
Totally agree.
And maybe they've had some, harlot past where they've gone out and they've slept with 50 men and done all these terrible things and extorted people and all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But when that person, and maybe this could end up being like a semantic thing, but when that person, comes to the faith and they find God, that body count still exists, right? Unless you think that it doesn't.
It still does.
Right. So you agree that there could be a perfectly suitable partner for a man who is a Christian, right? And one of the things that happened to be in her past was that, she had all of these sexual partners, but now she has, found Christ. Mm-hmm. So in that case, yeah, it wouldn't be right for him to consider that if she's changed.
Yeah, no, it would be totally right for him to consider it.
Why would he consider that?
Because
if
it would still show a pattern of not upholding the same virtues he's looking for.
In the past, but not currently. But if she's currently upholding those values.
Well, your past behaviors could generally
It's
be an
determination
indication of your future behavior.
It's the determination. Rachel Wilson, I love when Rachel Wilson chats. Imagine you ask your girlfriend to marry you and she says, I don't know if I have a large enough data that can make that determination yet. That's the world this woman wants. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine to say, but if he has really good overriding evidence that she will never do that again, that she, will go forward.
Again, she's just saying this argument like you have to bet on it. You bet on it. Like if he has enough data to determine whether or not she will never do that. Well, you guys know it's not gonna happen. If she has a lot of partners in the past, it's a pattern. She's gonna leave you.
I don't know what evidence he could have for that.
Let's just say he has some evidence, regardless.
Yeah,
But if he has that evidence.
Yeah, if you were to say like he had a crystal ball in front of him,
right,
and he could see the whole future, sure, I wouldn't dispute that. But that would be baked. That would be baked into the fact of knowledge itself. He has pre-existing knowledge this will not happen, or some really overwhelmingly good, compelling evidence it wouldn't. But absent that, which I would argue in most cases they wouldn't have, then it would show a pattern of behavior against the same virtues he's looking for, where he could select for somebody who's upheld those virtues.
There's also, so that's fine to say that if he has reason to believe that she'll still engage in those behaviors, regardless of whether or not she's in a committed relationship with him, that's a kind of separate question, but an adjacent question. Because the question is she going to...
Bro, she's one of the disingenuous. She's such a disingenuous person. Use a lot of these big words, and I believe it's just to give her time to think about what she's gonna say next. Before she even gets to an argument, she's just throwing 3 or 4 or 5 sentences.
Be promiscuous in this relationship. Presumably, like if you take somebody who has like a large body count, they're usually not in relationships with those people.
No, it's not. Well,
unless you disagree.
I dispute the premise here a bit. I'm going to quibble a little
Negative
bit.
body language again.
I'm fine quibbling on this point.
Okay.
So my quibble is it's not really necessarily even a sign that she will be promiscuous, though I think it's there. Only a sign that she's perhaps not upholding virtues. She doesn't have a pattern of upholding virtues. So I think that, like any behavior, like if you're a practicing Christian or a practicing Muslim, let's say, they hold set values for what virtues are. And just like language, communication, and all forms of different habits which are formed in people, they're done by exercising them over and over and over again. So if you're a person who is high in virtue, you're probably consistently exercising virtues as part of your habit, right? You're stopping let's give a stupid example, like you're always stopping on the side of the road to help people, or you're always, you know what I mean? That becomes habit after a while. After a while, you almost can't help but pull off on the side of the road to help somebody because it's so habitually built up in you. So I think that for them, this could be a great red flag sign that, wait, these habits, these virtue habits aren't really formed yet, especially if you're a new Christian, right? Or you just came to Christ in this sense. These habits haven't even had a chance to flower yet. And if you could select for somebody who's upheld them, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. So then it's not the necessarily body count thing.
No,
It's
it's not
more
the
so
body.
about whether or not the trend that happened in the past will continue. And
Oh,
whether,
it's not the body count, guys. No, listen, it's not the body count, guys. It's not the body count. They are so afraid of that. It's not the body count. It's just they want to create the scenario, or they want to create a culture where holding females accountable for their own decisions is almost as impossible to change. I'm gonna say it now. I'm gonna say it always. Body count is one of the worst thing can happen for a female well-being, for a healthy relationship, and her ability to pair bond. Your value is in how your value is in basically just holding yourself clean until you get married. That's it. Whoever wants to come here and try to argue that, I don't care. We are men. We're the one that decide what we like and what we want in a female. If you guys don't want to just show that, that's fine. That's completely fine. We just go where it's at. See, going back and forth when it comes down to topics like that is a waste of time, because it's not what you guys determine. It's what we want to buy. And this guy, we want to buy somebody that has a low body count or zero body count. And that's it. You don't have to go here to just do these arguments for 4 or 5 hours and fight for the next 20 years. It's men that want to decide. That's it. It's men that decide. If you have a high body count, you're going to be used for practice. That's it. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.